So we're in with Scratch. Let's get Scratch going. So we have our little cat. Now, with our cat and how it sits in this little screen, you'll notice that there's these X and Y numbers. The center for the cat is 0. And obviously for Y, there's also 0. So if you lose your cat, just type these numbers and press enter, and it will put it here. So this here is your sprite. Your sprite has its own code that you can drag in and do stuff with. So what we want to do is we wish to get this cat moving. Right, so let's just start with the basics. Events, when green flag clicked. Now this, I will enlarge this just for those who are optically challenged. This basically means whenever the program starts. So basically when we hit start of the program, it does this and runs all these things attached underneath it. So if I say move 10 steps, now when I hit green flag, it does it. I can click it lots and it goes there. Don't let it so much that it disappears out the screen. By all means, grab the cat by the tail, because it's always fun, and then drag it back. So now what we want to do is we want to say, okay, well, let's just try one as if I've got one that says +10 and one that says -10. Now, with testing anything, put it in, test it, see what it does. So the result is nothing. You see this bit of code flash? This means that the code's red, but there's no continuous loop, so it lights up and then it just stops. Problem is, the code reads faster than it actually does on the screen. So if I tell this code to slow down a wee bit, so under the control section, you can see here, and if I tell it to wait, I don't know, like 0.3 of a second, because I can't wait a whole second. Now we see this. But if I click a couple times, it just keeps going forward. Why? Because I'm clicking faster than 0.3 of a second, so it just keeps going forward. Now, if I change these numbers, the same but bigger, we get a bigger movement. So now if we want to try and get continued movement, we can say forever. It's quite a long time for those who haven't figured that out. So it's going to run for basically the entire duration of this program or this game. Then if I say move 10 steps, it does that. Great. But obviously we haven't told it when you touch the wall to stop or anything. Look, it's still doing it. I grab by the tail and I just put it anywhere. Now, one of the issues is we've got this little jump back bit, but that's it. So you can see how this is still lit up because it's still running forever. So if I press stop now and then move the cat, we better. So what I want to do is I want to tell the cat at the start of the game, so right at the start, I want you to go to the center, which is 0, 0. That means that if I have dragged the cat anywhere and I hit start, it's in the center and it goes. So let's get it to do something when it hits this wall. I want it to say, if we touch the wall, it's going to keep moving, and we say if, then we can say under the sensing, this is for touching colors, key presses, all this stuff, anything to do with like responding to some form of input. It's generally where your sensing stuff is for. So I say if touching, and I don't want to say mouse pointer, I'll say edge. There is 4 edges, okay? If touching edge, I want to get it to say, not for hold 2 seconds, but I'll get it to say ouch, because that's fun. And then I will say not for 2 seconds, I'll get you to say it for like, say 0.3 of a second. Right, so if we start our game now, ouch. But see, it keeps doing it because it does that for 0.3 of a second, then moves, then does, then moves and does and moves and does, blah, 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 blah. So what I want to say is if you're touching the edge, I want you to say ouch, then I want you to motion point in another direction. So I'm going to say point direction. Now I want you to be, I can't, if I choose this direction, what happens when it touches this wall? It's going to just point the same way as that wall. So it doesn't really help me. But if I do this little trick under the operators, I grab the plus sign. See, there's a plus sign there. And I'm going to say plus 90. Oh, no, 90, 180. My bad. 180. We want it to flip. And I'm going to say travel in. If we scroll to the bottom direction, and when you're clicking anything in, you want to put the front part of the shape into the hole. See, if I do this, not really doing anything. If I do this, front part. There you go. So it's going to point in the current direction plus 180, which means that current direction 180, current direction 180. It's going to flip, flip, flip. And let's see how that goes. Ouch. It's working, but we've got this weird thing of this cat turning upside down. This is to do with the rotation style, which is right under your blue motion stuff. And we're going to set rotation style left, right, where do we have to set it? We can put it anywhere, but if we set this at the start of the code, it just means like, here's the starting rules. Only rotate left, right. I don't want you turning. So now it goes like this. Ouch. Ouch. It will do this forever and just keep repeating this. This here, in my view, is not a game. This here is a slightly comical screensaver at best. So what we can do is we can pause this. We can update the name. See, it says sprite 1. I want this to be cat. Right. Or it could be your player or what have you. The other thing I also want to do is take all this stuff and throw it in the bin. I know you work really hard on it. So what we want to do is we want to try and get inputs going, right? So I'll say forever, if I press a key, move. We'll test a few different movements. Right. If it starts off a space key, and I'm just going to go with right arrow key, motion, move. Right. That's one type of movement. So let's test this. Seems to be pretty effective. Let's add a few more details onto this. We're going to say looks next costume. So costume, if we see up the top here, it has a tab for costumes. And in here we can see there's 2 costumes, which basically gives us a run animation. Now obviously you can get better ones with more costumes, and it has a smoother animation and does a whole bunch of other stuff. So now if I press right, it's doing that, which is great. Now the last thing we need to do, because we want to make sure it's pointing the right direction, it just so happens to be pointing right when we start. If I had taken the direction and done this, right, so it's pointing left, and I press right, it's just going to go forwards in whatever direction it's moving, which now happens to be left, even though I'm pressing the right key, which is confusing. So I wish to go here, point a direction, point, move, and then animate. It's pretty instant. It's pretty good. Now, some of the other movements we can get is under events and say if key pressed, and then say right, and I can then basically, I just right mouse click and duplicate and just borrow all that. And I'm just going to disconnect this code. So I'm just pulling it out. See, it's not connected now. Won't run. Let's see how this one works, because this doesn't say when green flag click. It just when the key press do it. See that delay? What happens is it reads it once, and I'm holding it down, and it goes, oh, they're holding it down on purpose. Let's keep repeating. So there you go. So it's okay, but it's a bit clunky. Doesn't work that great. So then this one was definitely by far the best. And what I want you to do is just to get the same thing for left going, which is actually very straightforward. So by all means, try and do it before I show, but this is how the result looks like. You just duplicate, click it under. Now be sure to make sure the if stops before the next one starts. Otherwise, if we put it inside here, it says if you're going right, then you can go right, which is this is going to be left. And then we're going to point it left. So I can only go left if I'm going right, which is a little bit confusing. So if I make sure they're outside of each other, that means now I can go right, left. That there is a proper animation. Some of you will obviously try and make it go run up and down the screen. We can actually get a proper jumps, like a jump physics going where it jumps, slows, and then goes down. But that's working so far. So that there is your basic animation, get your cat moving and doing something. So I'll stop the video there and then we'll do the next skills for the next session.